All right, so we apparently do remember that there were plains, mountains, mountain plains, hills, right? So good. I mean, I don't expect y'all remember too much since it was a while back when we got into this and we've been out for a little bit. Um, all right, so let's look at this image. So remember that Italy, or like the Italian peninsula, it's a peninsula because it's surrounded by water on three sides. One, two, dang it, and three. Surrounded by water on three sides. This makes it a peninsula. Then, of course, to the north, you have the Alps, which are the mountains of northern Italy. And then you have the Apennine Mountains, which run through the center of the peninsula. And of course, there are a few plains. We have like the Etruscan plains up here. Then we have like the Latium plains down here. And of course, we can't, the Tiber River, which is the major river of Rome, that runs through the city of Rome. There. Yeah, that's just some of the basics from our little lesson a while back over the geography of Rome. Minimize that back. Okay. Now we're going to do a quick little quick write. All right, so tell me this. So what are some advantages or benefits to being a country that is mostly surrounded by water? Yes, military advantage, definitely. Please try to tell me in like a sentence or two, if you can. Okay, yeah. So some of y'all had some pretty good answers. I was hoping some of y'all might have written a little bit more, but so like Jacori was like, I think some advantages can be food because you're by the water, so you can catch fish, or you can catch some animals drinking from the water. So boosting your immune system. All right. Not bad, not bad. So, all right. We'll go ahead and unpack that quick right as we roll into this. So for right now, don't just kind of follow along as best you can from home as I go through this, and take notes as you see needed. But in a little bit, you're going to get a set of questions to answer as we roll into the second half of these notes you're getting. So, unlike the last times we've been doing this, like you get questions at the end of class after I've done anything, you're going to be having questions to answer as we roll into this lesson. But you'll get them in a little bit. So we're going to kind of go over some geography stuff right now for Rome, and then we'll get into the next half. So, all right. Rome is located in the Mediterranean Sea, so that's all this right here. Well, this is the Mediterranean. And it's a peninsula, so we know all that. It has the mountains, the Alps and the Apennines act as a shield. They kind of protect Rome and the rest of its cities and civilizations. Protects the Roman civilization from being invaded. And also, unlike the Greeks, these mountain ranges did not isolate the Romans. So if you remember the Greeks, their cities and their cultures developed much differently from each other because they were kept separate by their boundaries, their mountains that ran throughout Greece. So like Athens was very different from Sparta, and Thebes and Corinth, Delios, all these other cities developed quite differently culturally, and the way their government functioned. One city-state would have like a democracy, and another city-state would have a dictatorship. This was not the case for Rome. Roman civilization was, you had the main city of Rome, and like you had other cities around it that were part of Rome. They were, the capital of Rome and all these other cities that reported to Rome. So that's how they were kind of different from the Greeks. The Romans and Greeks were different in that way. And also because of these, some of these natural boundaries, it forced invaders to migrate through narrow mountain passes, which allowed the Romans time to respond. So, they were aware when they were being invaded or something, but it took the militaries a long time to get to them. So all they just had to do is sit and wait, and they had the advantage. So that allowed Rome time, when it was just like a baby country, to really grow without being bothered by other forces and other tribes and people. But that wasn't always the case. Eventually, that wouldn't help them out as much, and they would be invaded. All right, and then this right here kind of goes back to our quick right. Countries and civilizations that are surrounded by large bodies of water, not necessarily rivers. I mean, every major civilization is starts along a river. The beginnings of the United States began along rivers. And same is true for every major civilization throughout human history. But the thing that separates some civilizations from stronger civilizations is their connection to larger bodies of water. So countries like Japan, the United Kingdom, like England, and for in some cases the United States, we were right next to these large bodies of water or oceans or seas that allowed us to connect with other trade networks and other civilizations. And this was true for the Romans. They were right there, smack dab in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. They were like at the crossroads of this trade network. There's a saying that goes all roads lead to Rome, because they were just kind of like at this like central point in like this trade network in the ancient world, because they were just kind of like very, very luckily kind of located in the middle of this trade route. But also allows them access to water to spread out and settle other areas. So they'll settle these islands, they'll be able to spread down here to parts of Africa. Eventually they'll come down, go across the Ionian Sea into Greece and all the other places. So yeah, it's being that close to an ocean or a sea has lots of benefits that civilizations with just a river can't match. All right, to see if you're listening. So what are some ways Rome developed differently from Greece as it grew? So answer that in the chat, and I'm going to go ahead and take attendance real quick for us. All right, so moving on. You should have not as many people as I'd like to. Seem to answer the question. I don't know. Are some of y'all still writing or something? So Rome was more well connected and was not separate. Did not develop separately or as disconnectedly as Greece did as it grew as a civilization. All right, here we go. We have a little image here showing the trade network in like these green lines, these green showing the trade routes across the Mediterranean Sea, the Black Sea, from like Persia and Greece, all the way up into other parts of Africa and Europe. Rome was at the center of all this. So this was a huge advantage for them, that they were at the center of all this trade happening in the Mediterranean Sea. So so Rome's central location along the Mediterranean Sea gave them access to important trade routes that created crossroads of trade between Europe, Asia, and Northern Africa. But in the same way, they were kind of located away from, problematic, hostile foreign powers like the Persians or like the Mongolians who were coming across and trying to attack parts of Greece and Eastern Europe. So they were kind of buffered from all that because, they had Greece to protect them, or not necessarily protect them, but like Greece was able to like shield them from these other powers. And there's really nothing over here that could bother Rome when it was just like a really small, city in the beginning. So yeah, just to recap. So of course we have the Alps up here, the mountains to the north of Italy, the Italian peninsula. Then we have Africa down there. That's Rome is kind of located in the center of the Italian peninsula. Yeah, I can go back. All right. So you have the Alps to the north. Rome, and the Adriatic Sea here to the east. Then you have Asia Minor, which this is part of this is all part of Greece because of Alexander the Great. Mediterranean Sea, Greece, Italian Peninsula. So, right. Yeah. So that's where we are at with the geography of Rome. All right. So we're not going to do Roman mythology. We're going to skip down here to the Republic. All right. So this is where your questions are going to come in for this. So I'm going to go ahead and all right. So you can either take a picture of these questions, or that'd probably be best to do that. Take a picture of them so you can, as we go through the next part of this lecture, you need to answer these. Just kind of keep you on your toes. So I won't be posting like the slides or anything like this. I'll post these questions later in like Google Classroom, but I want you to use the time, as I'm going through it for you to answer them. Because as we go through this together, you'll get the answers for each of these. Yes, Khalil, answer in your notebooks, and then this is something you're going to turn in later. All right. So Rome started out as a monarchy. Whose who's the ruler in a monarchy? Who has the power? So Rome began as a monarchy. Who has the political power in a monarchy?
A king or queen?
Yeah, king or a queen, usually. So they started out with they had a run of like 7 kings, I believe is the amount. I'd have to check the amount, but I think it's about 7 kings before they transitioned into a republic, a democracy, kind of like how we have in the United States. So they went from monarchy to a republic. And then eventually, like the near the end of the Roman civilization, they had a empire. It was kind of like the dictatorship. So monarchy to republic. We're not really at the empire bit yet, but just know that it started out as a monarchy with a king, and then they switched to a republic. All right, and we're going to pay special attention to the republic today. Here are the questions again, if you needed them. All right, good. All right, so this is what the republic was like. Is like representative democracy. They elected people to serve them in the government. If you broke down the word republic, it literally means res publica, public thing. And these people that they elected help them make laws, pass policies about how to become a citizen of Rome, or what rights people had, maybe like how what they were going to tax people for, how much food was going to cost, things like this and that. All kinds of political decisions. And the Republic, the democracy period, lasted for about 450 years. From about 509 BCE to about 29 BCE is how long it lasted. Remember, BCE goes in reverse. So from 509 to 29 BCE is time moving forward. But in the BC times, when we look at BC, we look at it going backwards. So 29 BCE is actually a time in the future compared to 509 BC. I know it's a little confusing, but yeah. So this was the social structure, or like the social hierarchy in the Roman Republic. So you had the two of the highest positions you could be in Rome, which were the patricians and the plebeians. The patricians were the highest class you could be a part of. This part right here, patra, is where you get the Spanish word for father, padre, or papa. which means like, the male head, like the head of a household. Sometimes this is called like the paterfamilias. And below the patricians, you had the plebeians. The plebeians were, so the patricians were like the noble, wealthy class of Roman society. And the plebeians were kind of like, they were the workers. They like, they did craft work and they made things. They may have been, they may have had money and, been well off, but they were not as wealthy as like the patricians. So they were merchants and farmers and other skilled workers. And the patricians and plebeians were part of the government. They could be elected to serve in the government or the Republic of Rome. The patricians served in the Senate and the plebeians served in the assembly. And they voted on things together. So in this way, you had like you had the high class of Roman society voting on things, and the plebeians voted on, and like the lower classes voting on stuff too. So there was like everybody kind of had a voice and a say. Okay, and inside of this circle, these people were considered, these people had the most privileges in Roman society. Now, the people outside of the circle down here, so like foreigners, people who weren't born in Rome or weren't Roman citizens, or women or slaves, they did not have as much privilege as, say, like a male, like a man in Rome, a Roman male citizen. They did not have the same amount of rights and privileges as men or as citizens of Rome. So foreigners were not considered to be the same as like a Roman citizen, or like women. Even if you are like a Roman woman, and you had like a Roman husband, you were still, women couldn't vote or participate in government. And of course, slaves were the bottom of this, of this hierarchy or this social structure in Rome. They had the least amount of rights. And that should give you a few answers to one of the questions on that list of questions you got. So there were rules to citizenship. Like any country that grows to any kind of size or influence will have rules about who is a citizen and who is not a citizen. And Rome was no different. I mean, United States is like that. There's a question on the list about like which what would have been easier to become a citizen in the United States or in Rome. So all patrician and plebeian males born of legal marriage were automatically Roman citizens. But like, say if you were a Roman man and you met like a foreign woman, like a Persian woman, and you had like a kid with her, that kid would not be considered a Roman citizen. Like you both had to be Roman citizens for that child to be Roman. Now, in some cases, a foreigner could be granted limited citizenship, or in very rare cases, full Roman citizenship. But this meant you had to pay Roman taxes. Uh, you maybe had to serve in the military at some point if it came to it. Sometimes serving in the military could get you citizenship. There's something that Rome did at one point, like where they said, like, if you serve in the military, you'll get like your own piece of land, and you'll get a farm and a house to have for yourself in the Roman Empire. So that's something they would do. So they had their own set of rules about how to become, or what made you a Roman citizen. The distinction between who was and who was not a Roman citizen. And so we'll just highlight, it's important to highlight for a second that women and slaves were considered to be one of like the lowest, rungs or levels of Roman society. Women couldn't participate in government. In some cases, they just didn't have a very big role in society. They were kind of just like housewives. And that was just kind of their position in Rome. But they were in a better position than slaves were. Slaves were, they could, you could treat your slave however you wanted to. I mean, they could be, like it says, they could be raped, killed, sold, and or tortured if need be, up to the owner. So that's why, in history, they always say, like, if you ever, have a time machine, never go into the past, always go into the future. Because like the past is just like really nasty. And over here on the right, we have an image of a Roman woman and a slave here. So we're kind of short on time, but like I like to see if my students can guess who the Roman woman is and who the slave is. But the slave is here right on the left. She's kind of wearing ratty clothes, not very well dressed, and she's dressing this woman in like this very like look expensive looking dress. Then we had the consuls. The consuls were kind of the leaders of the government. They're kind of like the presidents, the Barack Obamas or like the Donald Trumps. And there were two consuls that served at the same time. It's like having two presidents. And they kind of checked and balanced each other, and they served a 1-year term. So they were elected and by the Assembly and the Senate, and they served for 1 year beside each other. And they kind of like directed, or they're kind of the face of the government. And then we have the Senate. The Senate was where the patricians practiced government. The Senate was for the patricians. If you were a plebeian, you could not be a part of the Senate. You had to be a wealthy, landowner or some kind of wealthy person in Rome to become a patrician. So the Senate was like the wealthy part of the democracy or the republic. So that was the Senate. And we have the assembly, and the assembly was made up of the plebeians, like the farmers and like the craft workers and merchants. Not necessarily higher class, but they still served in government. So the assembly was the plebeians, and the Senate was the patricians, the higher class. So, and that made up the Republic of Rome. And of course, you had the consuls who served over the Senate and assembly of Rome. And the assembly and the Senate voted on things together. Just kind of like in the United States, we have the House of Representatives and we have the Senate. And the Roman laws, the 12 tables helped kind of like, set up what kind of like the rules for how the republic should act. Kind of like on the United States, we have the Bill of Rights, or like the Constitution, which like, lines out how our government should work, or like the rules for our government. Like for instance, in the United States, we have that, a president can only be elected twice into the government. They can't run a third time. So like, and the consuls in Rome can only serve for a year. They can't be elected again a second time. So that's like, that's how the 12 tables worked. Okay. So that wraps that. Now I'll go ahead and also, now before you will also have a list of vocabulary for this week that'll be due Sunday night, and you'll have a quiz next Monday over these terms. And here is here are the questions you got earlier. This will be due tomorrow night. Okay, so those are the two things you should be, you have to do right now until we leave. And I'll be here if you have any questions. All right, everybody. That wraps it up for us today. Be sure you're able to type in the answers, something like that. That's due tomorrow at midnight. And I'll see y'all Thursday. Bye.